Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon, and today we're looking at G, Clan Wars Tactics. The Guerrillas are the top clan on the North American server, and Garbad was gracious enough to let us in just on a little peek of what they do in their typical Clan Wars game. The map is Cliff, and the opponent is not the type of clan that's going to give G a lot of problems. However, that does not mean that the replay isn't instructive or that it doesn't hold value. It's actually very instructive, and you can pick up a lot of neat things for use in your Clan Wars battles. Right now, scouts are rushing to key positions on the map, as well as trying to scout the main push of the enemy. Garbad encounters an early bat chat, and there's a very nice play right here where he rams the enemy scout. A little bit harder on the ramp, and it would definitely would have tracked him. It also reduced the momentum of the bat chat, allowing them to kill it before it escapes. Alright, let's stop it here for a moment. Take a look at the minimap and you'll see that G is running a very standard setup. Most of the tanks are in the main push. There's one artillery to break up a hard camp, and then on the opposite flank there's a lone tank that's meant to detect weird flank pushes and or institute delaying actions on that flank. When his job of scouting is done, he's going to rejoin the main force and or come at them from different angles. At this point, G's strategy is pretty clear. They want to make a push down the 1-2 line. The pushing tanks are generally in that valley, and the medium tanks are on that plateau. The medium tanks up on top have spotted artillery. They can peek over the ledges to light up enemy tanks. They can also come back into the valley when they want to make their main push, or if they can institute flanking actions. You'll notice that on the opposite flank, the lone heavy is kind of creeping back towards the main force. So there's some light skirmishing going on and a little bit of peeking, but it's actually pretty inconsequential. Everyone's just gathering, waiting for the big push. So the mediums, you'll notice that they are going to come down back into the valley, and everyone is going to push together. This isn't a pub game. We're not using the vision system. We're not camping. This is straight up, hey, there are 6 tanks in front of us. Well, how do you beat 6 tanks? We're going to have 10 tanks go against 6 tanks. So everybody's down in the valley, ready to push. They're just waiting for the order. You'll notice on the opposite flank, the delaying tank. They left another medium up on the plateau with the delaying tank, and they're just keeping them busy. That's it. They're sacrificial lambs and nothing more. And so when you make the push like G is doing right now, notice there are tanks that are just heading to the opposite side. You don't want to bunch up completely. Then notice that they're moving to flank. Garbad did stop a little bit to take a shot, but otherwise he snapshot on the move, and you want to surround them on your push. And so we quickly end up in a 10-3. I mean, this game is just over. Yes, this game was a face roll, but it was still very, very instructive. Here's how to pull it off. The main force is going to be made up of 13 tanks. You're going to bring along 1 artillery to break up a hard camp by an opponent. You're going to have 1 scouting tank on the opposite flank to prevent fast cap strategies or getting flanked from that area. It can be a variety of tanks. When you're ready, you're going to group up in a small area, and then you're going to force a brawl with all of your tanks. It's very easy, very common, and very effective. This next game is an example of straight up out-executing the opponent. The map is again cliffs, even from the same side, but this time Garbad is in a bat chat rather than a 140, but he'll perform roughly a similar role. Again, we see him scout the 1-2 line just to see if there's any enemy scouts here or there's going to be a main push around that corner. If you look at the minimap, you can see that G is doing roughly the same sort of strategy, or at least a variant on it. This is a different battle color, but you can see 1 main force blob, 1 artillery for breaking up a camp, and then there's a lone tank destroyer on F2 just to be a flank scout. The enemy team has been spotted doing a middle push. I think this is a good move by the opponent. It looks like they are concentrating their forces, and if they can get into a brawl relatively intact, that is probably the best idea to beat G, is just to say, you know what, we don't care if we're getting flanked, we're just going to straight up try to plow our tanks into G and mix it up, see what happens. A good thing to note right now is the discipline shown by these three tanks. They're not peeking, they're not engaging, they're waiting for the rest of the main force to get into positions where they can react. Because remember, it's not about these dumb little skirmishes, it's not about sniping, it's about when that main push is going to happen and how to set up that main push. The enemy does not know it's about that one big push, as there are a couple different tanks here foolishly peeking. It's Bat Chats that are peeking into these three mediums. So there's a flanking force on the far east that's going to work their way around the mountain. And even though they're kind of splitting up like this, the idea is the same. When all of the tanks are in position, then everyone is going to push at the same time. Garbad and the other two mediums get an advantage with these peeking tanks, so they calmly just eliminate the other E5. However, if you look in the middle, I think the enemy is doing something very, very good. They're all just plowing into the middle at G. So the tanks on the far east that are going around the mountain are actually pretty useless. And if the enemy had better tactical execution, you can see in the middle there's a lot of enemy that could just plow through G's ranks and probably make the score 7-5 in G's favor. I mean, it's still not great, but they did have a chance to make the game much more interesting. But whereas when G made their main push last game, you could see on the minimap how they just kind of swarmed around their opponent, and when you looked at the main push that the enemy made this game, they just got to the middle and then sat there. That's why they all died. It was just straight up, pure individual skill on why G won this game so convincingly. The enemy team continued to try to fight it like it was a pub game. This is not a pub game. You're not sitting and sniping. You're trying to initiate one big brawl, and then you're forcing the enemy tanks down with focus firing and autoloaders. Big thanks to both Guerrillas and Garbad for letting us use these replays and showing off their impeccable technique. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.